In 3 words, describe me. Who is Jim Davis?
3 words. Simple, complex, and reserved. And when the game's over, the game is over. I don't know what's best for you. Adrian, a mascot for a bar in St. John, USVI. Every afternoon about between 2:30 and 3:30, Adrian would start squawking. As soon as she got her shot of vodka, she was happy, went and passed out and waited for the next day, but you could set your watch by her. The story begins on June the 7th, 1944, 1:38 in the morning. I'm here. Except, had I been born an hour and 39 minutes earlier, I would have been a D-Day baby. This is what I wore home from the hospital, my baby picture, my baptism certificate. My family, for the most part, farmers, carpenters. 6th birthday, I don't know, maybe 4. Parents were probably one of the first to have a convenience store, a building in Abbotsville, Ohio. Dad had good clientele. One of the gentlemen who was a friend of Dad's, and a fellow by the name of Jim Light. I'm in the playpen or wherever they've stuck me, crying, boo-hooing. Something didn't suit, whatever. So Jim asked my mother, what's the deal with Jimmy? I never heard him crying like that before. She said, well, he's cutting teeth and they get cranky. And, oh, okay. He said, well, he needs something then to chew on. So the next night, Jim shows up, reaches in his pocket, and pulls out what was referred to as a Saturday night special. Saturday night special is a cheap pistol, and he'd taped it all up with electrical tape, put it in my playpen, and I cut my teeth on that pistol. It set the tone for the rest of my life. Back here, Zach.
So have you ever had to use one of these in self-defense at all? Or
What about them?
have you ever had to use one like in self-defense or?
Yeah. Although I was in a hunting situation, we were hunting bear. I was positioned up on a ridge. Dad was up on the ridge on my right. It was getting dark. Started hearing noise, a little noise. Knew Dad wasn't moving. I wonder what making that noise. And then for some reason, I thought, this is the first time that I'm hunting something that has the capability to hunt me back. Huh, how about that?
You get burnt out on something, or you expose yourself to it to the point where, okay, I'm topped out, I'm full, I don't want any more of this, which sets the tone for just about everything I was ever interested in. I found something that I want to do that, I want to try that, I want to experience that, and go all in. Sometimes the outcome wasn't always that great, but I didn't choose the career kind of chose me. Growing up and hanging out at the lumberyard with Dad and hanging around with all the other builders, trying to figure out what separates the carpenter from the builder. When you're a carpenter, people look at you and say it's an honorable profession. Supposedly Jesus was in the same line of work. Then you decide to be a builder. Where'd the ground go? Who's financing that? Well, boy, you can get spread out pretty thin. Then you become a developer. You're putting in streets, you're putting in sidewalks, you're putting in light poles, you're doing everything. Boy, I'd watch out for them. So, how do I do it? Cut a deal on the ground, cut a deal with the banks. I'm a fucking developer. If you spend much time in the island, people that are islanders, most of them have picked up alias, kind of like Billy the Kid, except that was Boston Bob. Got wind that there was trades to participate on a resort construction down in the Virgin Islands, which led to projects in North Carolina, Bahamas, back to Key West. The West Indies became our playground. Key West is at the end of the road. One road in, one road out, same road. There's nothing in the world to compare with middle of the night, out in the middle of the ocean, billions and billions of stars in the sky. The only sound you hear is just a little bit of noise from the wave going past the hull, shooting stars more than you can imagine possible. And then daylight breaks, you're another island. There's over 300 bars and restaurants in the Keys, 5 square mile. It's hard on your kidneys. There isn't much to do, but... And then language is always a challenge. I ordered a hamburger and a Coke, and what I got was a hot dog and a glass of sangria, which at the time, I didn't care. It didn't make any difference. To be in Key West for a few days or a week or two, you'll never get to see all the details that Key West provide. I'd probably go back if I could get out of here. Travel as much as you can, absorb as much as you can of what's going on in the world, and I've seen some amazing things. I got some great family, really strong grandkids and some great grandkids. It's their turn to grow up and carry the torch. My dream at this point is they don't raise the price on Captain Morgan so I can enjoy my retirement. Don't be afraid to look at an opportunity and delve into it. Be good to the people around you, and don't forget to give your family credit, because they've been behind you all the way, so they play a major role in the outcome. Is it beer 30?
So. I think so too. Yeah.
Okay, sign me out.
Let's sing a song of long ago, when things could grow and days flowed quietly. The air was clean and you could see and folks were nice to you. Would you like to come over for tea with the missus and me? It's a real nice way to spend a day in Dayton, Ohio, on a lazy Sunday afternoon in 1903.
John Henry Patterson, a Dayton native, today is known as the father of American salesmanship. Even though we've had all kinds of famous inventors and engineers from Dayton, Patterson wouldn't count himself in that particular group. He was not an inventor of the cash register. Rather, he took the idea of the incorruptible cashier, the idea of a mechanical device to track sales, and really shared it with the world and convinced the world, both the buying public and shop owners or merchants, of the need to actually have a cash register and to purchase cash registers. So an amazing, amazing figure. Many of the things that we take for granted today, whether we love them or hate them, are things that Patterson innovated. So for example, the idea of direct mail advertising, what we might call junk mail, was a Patterson innovation. In those early days though too, Patterson came up with the concept of get a receipt as a sales slogan. So nowadays we take that for granted that, oh, you know, you buy something, you want to get a receipt, you want to have your Amazon order stored on your computer. Well, again, in this earlier period, he was really instrumental in convincing the buying public to only shop at stores where you could in fact get a receipt.
John Henry Patterson was born on December 13, 1844, at the Rubicon Farm in Dayton, Ohio. His grandfather, Robert Patterson, was a Revolutionary War veteran, and his father, Jefferson Patterson, served as a state representative. John would grow up working for his father on a massive 2,000-acre property. After deciding farming wasn't for him, Patterson attended college, graduating from both Dartmouth and Miami University. He also served in the Union Army during the Civil War, but didn't see any combat. He worked various jobs such as a toll collector on the Miami and Erie Canal.
And it's while serving in that role that he starts to think about some of the practices that would serve him well in the future. So for some examples, he would interact quite a bit with these illiterate canal boat captains that had to track how much freight and cargo and bills of lading and bills of sale and how much money was going on and off of the ship. And so he actually starts using a series of color coding of the paper, sort of like, you know, this is the blue paper, this one means this, and this red one means this, and really started to believe firmly, and there's absolutely some truth to his approach, that people learn best through the eye. He believed in teaching through the eye. So really for the remainder of his life, he was always coming up with ways to have what we might call visual aids, or audio visuals later on, but big visual aids to help put across a particular message.
Patterson didn't stay on the canal forever. Eventually, he got into the coal business where he was again able to set himself apart.
Sort of a lot of his competitors kind of had beaten up, dirty, dusty old wagons delivering coal to people. So he has really clean wagons with bright lettering on them saying Patterson, a coal company, and really doing his best to have an impressive look to his company, what we might call like the Disney way. During this same period, so we're saying 1870s, now you're going into the 1880s, Patterson becomes familiar with a company called the National Manufacturing Company. And this was a company that had the rights to manufacture an invention by Dayton brothers, the Reda brothers. James Reda in particular had developed the incorruptible cashier, which is essentially a mechanical device to track sales.
This company had taken a crude idea and developed it into the most widely used machine in the handling of money and records in the whole world. I've seen some of those early models since and heard some fantastic stories about them. When the first cash registers came out, some people were suspicious of them. They took the new machines to be a challenge to their honesty, instead of a faster, more accurate way of keeping track of sales. Fortunately, this opposition didn't last long, but there just at first, some of the rougher element tried to run cash register men out of town. And in those days, it took a brave man to be an NCR salesman.
To overcome the violent opposition to cash registers, Patterson pioneered the idea of sales training. After converting his sugar maple grove into a sales training camp called the University Under Canvas, or NCR Sugar Camp, Patterson laid the groundwork for what would become the standards for American salesmanship.
You want to talk private? Here'll do.
Mr. Purdy, I'm from the National Cash Register Company of Dayton, Ohio. Now, here is some new information about our new total adder. And this is a 3-key sample model.
But it wasn't just his salesmen that Patterson was concerned with. He also pioneered worker welfare in a time when sweatshops were the norm and workplace safety was the last concern. He built the first ever daylight factory in the world, with each wall consisting over 80% glass. This flooded the factory with natural light, and when things in the factory became too hot, the windows opened, letting air flow through. He had company doctors and nurses and would have employees weigh in before their shifts. If they were underweight, they were served malted milk or soup.
I mean, he wasn't just doing this because he had a heart of gold or something along that line. He was doing it because he knew that a happy and healthy workforce was a productive workforce. And a lot of this was driven from the fact that his company really was not much different than a lot of other companies at the time early on. Early on, it was dark. It was sort of dangerous working conditions. You know, he had an entire shipment of cash registers get sent back to his factory. And when that happened, he knew something was wrong, and he knew he wanted to right the ship. And so what he does is he actually moves his desk to the factory floor to find out what the heck is going on. How can we fix this? And so he moves the desk there, very quickly sees like, well, you know, who wants to work in this kind of environment?
Despite pioneering the concept of employee welfare, John Henry Patterson was a fierce boss. His executives were constantly under the threat of firing, and some would be fired multiple times for the simplest infractions. Charles Kettering was fired because he had trouble on a horse. "Any man who can't handle a horse can't handle men," said Patterson. Being an executive at NCR during Patterson's time is considered by some to be an equivalent to an MBA. People like Edward Deeds, who would go on to establish Dayton Engineering Laboratories, or Delco with Kettering, as well as Thomas Watson Sr. of IBM, they called Patterson boss. Not only did he rule his company with an iron fist, but he waged war on his competitors.
He'll do things like buy up some competing machines, basically have guys kind of alter the guts of the machines and put them out, you know, for sale. And then of course they're faulty, they blow up, you know, people don't want them. So he does a lot of things that today we would look at and sort of think, oh, these are unethical or unscrupulous business practices. But, you know, certainly at the time, I think he saw them as all part of his mission to build a bigger and better company.
Eventually, Patterson's antics would result in a 1912 conviction for him and many of his executives of violating Sherman antitrust laws. These charges would eventually be overturned by appeal when it was shown the prosecution withheld evidence, beneficial to the defense. But before that could happen, tragedy struck Dayton in March of 1913. The Great Dayton Flood killed an estimated 400 people, displaced another 65,000, and triggered a gas explosion and fire, thus destroying 14,000 homes and buildings. All told, over $100 million in damages, more than $2 billion today. Patterson had seen flooding in Dayton before and recognized the danger.
And he is literally in downtown Dayton, the Easter Monday, day after Easter, 1913, with the water, you know, all this rain is falling on what had been basically frozen ground, all kinds of runoff going to the rivers and streams. And so before any of the big alarms start going off around the community, before the church bells start tolling and the factory whistles start blowing and everyone's heading for higher ground, Patterson sees what's about to happen, goes back to just south of town, up Fairgrounds Hill, up over to his factory, and he immediately starts converting his factory into a operation to be one focused on relief and recovery. So his woodworking department, he stops their production of wooden cabinets for cash registers, and immediately starts having them produce John boats that are going to be used to go out and rescue people. He starts having his cafeterias and factory kitchens start producing large quantities of food for the people that he knows are going to be coming, seeking higher ground and seeking shelter. And so he, in fact, was right on the mark because within hours, the levee breaks, sending a wall of water through downtown Dayton, 10 feet high, 12 feet high, 15 feet high in places, 20 feet high in some places. And it's not just the water, but the force of the water. It was a huge cataclysmic event for Dayton. It remains the worst natural disaster in the community's history. And so John H. Patterson puts the full force of Dayton's largest company, National Cash Register Company, over to being a rescue and relief operation. He literally sets up soup kitchens. He sets up a tent city on the grounds of NCR. In almost every way, he literally has people out with these NCR boats rescuing people from rooftops, rescuing them from, utility lines where they're, walking across, staying out of the water.
After the floodwaters receded, Patterson's vice president, Edward Deeds, led the campaign to prevent this disaster from ever happening again. He raised over $2 million in private money from 20,000 donors. The slogan was, "Remember the promise you made in the attic." He hired Arthur Morgan to construct a series of dams and levees that still protect Dayton and the Miami Valley to this day. Patterson and Deeds rescued Dayton from both the flood and future floods. But beyond that, John Henry Patterson revolutionized the world we live in. The next time you hear a cash register ring, remember the promises you made in your attic.
Folks were nice to you. Would you like to come over for tea? With the missus and me. It's a real nice way to spend a day in Dayton, Ohio, on a lazy Sunday afternoon in 1903.
My name is Jack Kunkel and I play golf for the University of Cincinnati. I got into the game of golf through my pops, my grandfather at a super young age. He'd always take me to the local course after school and we would just hit the ball around and have a great time. I feel like those are probably the best memories of my life in the golf aspect because I kind of found my love of the game through him. For the game of golf itself, it's really just hard to put into words for me because when I step out on the course, it's like there's not even a feeling comparable to it. I feel like I'm in my own world and it just clears my mind about everything. It just gives me goosebumps just thinking about it right now. Like when I step on that first tee, the wet grass, the fog when I tee off early in the morning, the birds chirping. It's just really an exquisite feeling out there. It's hard to put into words. I started off at such a young age, just playing in the backyard, hitting balls, and then it really came into reality that I could like really do this and go big and maybe have a chance of playing pro. By the time I even knew it, schools were contacting me. These big schools all around the world were trying to get me to go play golf for them. And when that happened, it just was an unreal feeling because my dreams were finally coming to reality. Going to college to play golf, I was super excited and motivated to get to campus and get ready to play. I was ready to structure my whole entire life and life in college around playing golf. But being a senior in college now, it's really changed. So I wake up every day around 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, and I got to get ready and do everything to get my day started, which really seems kind of like the only time that I have to myself. And then I have to drive all the way to practice, which I'm there for about 4 to 5 hours every day of the week. Then I got to drive back home and get ready for workouts because we also have that every day of the week. And then I got to get back here to go to class. At the end of the day, I get home and do all my homework. Then I start thinking about what I got to do the next day, and it's just a repeated process over and over again. We have qualifiers and tournaments every single week. There's just always something around the corner to get prepared for. I'm competing every day with my close friends, which is pretty tough sometimes because in our own free time, we really like to have fun together, but it's always just the aspect of us competing versus each other for that one spot looming over our heads. And it's just an endless grind that I can't seem to get over. Most people view golf as a rich person's sport, which is kind of true, but it's not true to everybody. On top of school and golf, I have to work, which really cuts into my time. So it's pretty hard when all the guys on my team are sitting around and just having fun. They just get to relax and focus on the game of golf. It makes me feel pretty isolated and alone. Golf used to be the time where I could just enjoy myself and relax and have fun. But now it doesn't really feel like that at all anymore. Golf just isn't the same as it used to be for me. I can be on a beautiful course and still not enjoy the game like I used to. I used to play for myself and just for the love of the game, but now I'm really worried about playing for the school and my score and worrying about the techniques in my swing and what the coaches are about to say. It's not just myself out there, and I don't feel like I'm focused on my own craft. It's more worried about the outside noise. Golf really just used to be my happy place where I could be at peace and have fun. And now it feels like a job, but that happy place has been taken away from me. And now that I realize that the path for me to go down to the pro route probably isn't going to happen, it's been tough to come to terms with that too. I still believe in myself completely, but it's almost like through all the practice and tinkering of every inch of my game, I've just lost some of the spark that made me good in the first place, which was the passion and love. I'm not playing for the love anymore. I'm just playing because I feel like I have to. Right now, I'm just focused on getting through this semester and graduating. I might go down a education career, finance career, but who knows? After graduating, I probably won't pick up a club for 6 months, maybe even do a year. I think maybe once I get away from the game, I'll I'll find that love for it again like I did when I was a kid. I need some time away from the game to find that peace back on the course.
One summer, in Seymour, Indiana, Bill and Kathy Vance engaged in a battle of wills. Over a white plastic bag?
So, how did the whole trash bag situation start?
Well, it started when your mother was getting ready to go back to school, and she was anxious to leave for school. And of course, I was anxious for her to leave to go to school. And so, something needed to be put in a container of some kind. Don't remember what it was. But a trash bag, and frankly, I don't know whether she had the idea that she needed a trash bag or I did, but a trash bag shows up that finally isn't needed. It just needs to be put away. And so I suggested that she put the trash bag away, put it back. We didn't need it, put it back. Somehow, she forgot that she was the one who was going to school. And I thought that's only appropriate that she take responsibility for this trash bag. And so I get ready, I think it was noontime maybe. I was getting ready to go back to the office, and she refused to take the bag, so I put it in with her stuff someplace. And I think she came and put it into my car as I'm backing out the driveway or something like that.
This was in the summer when I was a lifeguard at a subdivision. I would spend my mornings teaching swimming lessons, come home for lunch, and then I would go back to open the pool at 1 just for kids to swim in the afternoon. So I had been home and I was finishing up my lunch and grabbing my stuff, and my father is at the sink doing whatever, I don't know, because I was just trying to get out of there to get back to work. And he's asking for certain things and that he wants this, so I hand him whatever. I mean, I don't remember everything that he wanted, but I would hand him whatever he wanted. And I kept saying, I gotta get to work, I gotta get to work. So he's like, well, I need one more thing. Let me get can you get me a plastic bag? So at the time we had a box of like little trash can liners from like a bathroom sized trash can. And so those little white plastic bags. I thought, okay, fine. I grabbed it, I gave him that bag, and then I was leaving. He's like, no, that is not the bag I need something else. And I'm like, well, you get it, because I don't have time, I gotta go. Well, no, you put this bag away because you gave it to me and I don't need it. And I'm like, I don't have time to put it away. You asked for the bag, here's your bag. I don't have time. He throws it at me, so I'm like, fine. So I take the bag, grab my stuff, I leave because I gotta get to work. So I just tied it in a nice little bow on his rear view mirror outside of his car. I know that bag went back and forth forever. I mean, I don't know how many years this went on, but it went on, I think, a couple of years. It went on for a long time.
And it became a game that went on, gosh, for months, maybe years, I don't know. You know, if I found that sucker, it'd still be going on, I tell you that.
And from that moment on, the bag was entered into a war of attrition, swapping between the two forces and finding its way into all manner of places, including birthday parties and places of business.
Well, I made him, on his birthday one time, I made him a cake. I made a chocolate cake with white icing. And I made it a layer cake. And you can only guess, it had white icing on the outside, and the white icing on the inside was the white plastic bag. I think he really liked that cake.
In truth, it was so unusual that she would have baked a cake that I was suspicious when I saw the cake that there might well be foreign matter in that. If I remember correctly, I did slice into the cake very carefully, and I heard a little crunch that didn't sound like it was anything that ought to be in a cake. And that was, I think, the end of it, because I wasn't about to eat that cake. I knew some of the places I'd put that bag, and I was not going to eat that cake.
I had a key to his office because occasionally I would clean his office on the weekends. So I drove home an hour drive from school to his office one weekend, and he had a cushion that had a zip pillow cover over his cushion on his chair. So I unzipped that cover and I stuck it so he would be sitting on it. And I don't know how long he sat on it before he knew there was maybe a crinkle sound when he sat down. But that could have been a while. I don't know. I also, I think it was also like shoved into shoes and different, like, there was all kinds of places, and I would use, if I shoved it into his shoes, I'd use shoes that he didn't wear very often, so it would be a while. Because as long as I didn't have that bag, I didn't have to put it away.
So, what do you think happened to it?
Well, I think it most likely got shoved in, down in the seats of a car. I have a feeling, I don't know for sure, but I have a feeling that it got shoved there and nobody knew where it was. And when that car went to wherever it ended up, like the graveyard for cars or something, because it was an old car, probably went there. I really don't know what happened to that bag. I would like to believe that my father finally put it away.
She has the trash bag. Whether she knows it or not, she has the trash bag. The last time I saw that thing, I put it in her car. Actually, it's not her car, of course. It's my car that she was using. I put it in the car she was driving, but I think it was under the spare tire in the trunk, maybe, by that time. I don't know. It's someplace in that car. Well, we don't have that car anymore, and I never got the trash bag back, so she either has it, and she could have it. She could just have that. And you know, I wouldn't be at all surprised if she decided to slip that into my coffin sometime when I die. But you know, that's not going to work because I've left word to be cremated.
My name is Christy Archer. I'm from Fairborn, Ohio, and I'm going to be talking to you about how I lost 170 pounds. I am the oldest of 3 siblings. When I was a kid, my father was the only one working at the time, and when I was about 10 years old, My mother went to work, and so that kind of left us kids, with my father. Being the oldest, I took on a lot of responsibility of kind of being like the little mom. Around age 13, maybe the stress of it all, I'm not really sure, it kind of contributed to my tendency to binge eat. And the summer between 6th grade and 7th grade, I put on about 50 pounds. So by the time I was 14, I weighed 250 pounds. And it escalated from there.
Her weight gain was kind of so gradual growing up that it wasn't something that I paid a lot of attention to. It wasn't until really around junior high age that I noticed that it was a concern, and that was only because of what other people would think about her, and then worrying about what my friends would think about her, and like that kind of thing. That's when it became a concern to me, as selfish as that sounds, but I was a kid, so I didn't think about health or anything like that at that time.
In 2014, my grandfather passed away. He passed away really because of diabetes and heart disease. And I remember really clearly in the hospital, I was sitting beside his bed. He couldn't understand what I was saying. But I told him, I said, "You stupid old man, if you had to just listen to what the doctors said, then you would have 10 more years with grandma." And at the time, I was sitting in the chair, and it was kind of those ones where the sides were open, and my ass was hanging out the sides of the chair. And I looked down and I thought, "Oh, you hypocrite. You give it a little more time, and you're going to be the one in this bed, and everybody's going to be crying over you." And at that point, I was just like, "Oh, I'm done. I don't want to die. Nothing is that delicious." So I just started from there. I didn't really know how to start, but I did. I just didn't stop. Well, I knew that when I started that I didn't want to just go with a fad. I had to do some research on how to change your entire eating habits. So what I started with was, I'm thinking what has the biggest hold on me? And at the time I was, diet soda had a huge hold on me. I was drinking it morning, noon, night. So I kicked that. And then I went with the next thing that had a hold on me, which I had a huge sweet tooth. So I cut those out. And you succeed better by doing little baby steps. It can be really intimidating for people to start, exercising, but I feel like going somewhere small is a good starting place for people. And really, it doesn't matter what you do. At least in the beginning, you can just start doing some form of cardio. So that's what I did. And then I just did, half an hour every day. And I just didn't stop. What kind of emotional effects has a weight loss journey had? Huge. More so than anything physical. And that's the part that nobody really prepares you for. I remember every single second of being 320 pounds. Every second. Every single feeling of how my body moved. Sometimes I will get what I call phantom fat moments. And I can only compare it to if you were to lose an appendage really quick, you can almost feel that arm. I have a food addiction. So when I started to binge eating is, it's usually attached to emotion. But the hard part is with food, first of all, you need to live, obviously. But second of all, you have to have a balance. And it's the one addiction that you have that everybody wants you to kind of eat what you're addicted or have what you're addicted to. If it's alcoholism, drugs, no, don't ever have that. But, you have a food addiction. It's kind of like, hey, man, it's so-and-so's birthday party. Let's have some cake. Let's do this. Let's do that. And you feel and you actually have to kind of balance it. So that's the hardest part. That's something that nobody teaches you how to do. Another thing that, nobody really talks about is the fact that, you still feel like a morbidly obese person. I was class 3 morbidly obese. That's not even on a standard BMI chart. People make comments or compliments, I guess you'd say, oh, you look great, but you don't feel that. And that lasts so long after you've lost the weight. It just doesn't go away. And you really have this, body dysmorphia for a lot longer than you would care to, but it's so hard, to change all those things, to, the eye doesn't see what you want it to see, and you certainly don't see yourself like everyone else. So I would say that is, those things I hated more than the whole process of losing the weight. That was hard, but the mental toll is, it's good, it's great, thing that you do, but nobody prepares you for the, what comes after it.
Good morning.
Skin removal, it was probably one of the best decisions I ever made. Now, I had researched it because after I had lost 130 pounds, in that process, everybody says that I was young enough, that the skin was going to bounce back. It absolutely did not. So I went to the plastic surgeon, and he says, yeah, we can cut this off. And I had a lap apron of skin. And when he told me it was going to be gone, I was just shocked. I said, this is going to be gone. He said, yeah, it's going to be gone. So I was elated. They took off excess skin from around my whole entire body. And they took off 20 pounds of skin and kind of excess fat. There's fat there. And when I woke up, I had staples all the way around my body and drain tubes. And I just remember going to sleep, seeing all of that, and I woke up and it was gone. And I was so happy. The freedom that you feel like when something was just such a burden to you was amazing.
Hey guys, excuse me. I just wanted to give everybody an update through video because there's a lot of people that's been asking how I've been doing, which I really appreciate. So I'm home, as you can see. The surgery went really well. This is my right leg. The best part is I'm totally straight. Here's a comparison of legs.
So I was from childhood knock-kneed. So that meant my knees touched when my feet were separated, right? And when I was little, it was kind of mild. And it's usually a condition that will self-correct. So nobody was too worried about it. But mine didn't self-correct. And worse, I gained all that weight. So I have this morbidly obese body on top of these knees that are already kind of off-center. And eventually I just wanted to see what I could do to get it taken care of. I work in a children's hospital, and one day I was getting onto an elevator, and a man stops me, and he says, I was just looking at you, and you're knock-kneed. And I said, yeah, I know. And he says, no, I'm a surgeon, and I can fix that. And he had a way to fix it without replacements, and that was to have the rods placed in and correct the misalignment, and so I decided to do it, and I'm so glad I did, because that pain was just unreal, and now they're stronger than, my legs are stronger than they ever were, For years, my goal was to be as lean as I could be with, an acceptable number on this scale that I never would find. My goal was to look like a bikini model, possibly compete, you know, you name it. I've thought about it. I wanted to be bigger, stronger. I wanted to have just this little tight little body and for it to just be perfect at all times. I wanted, you know, a narrower waist. I wanted straighter legs. I wanted, you know, just perfect delts, and you know, I wanted so many different things at different times. And like I said, it's literally just chasing a dragon. You are literally going after something that you will never get. You know, that's what I'm telling myself. You'll never be there, ever. Just accept your little flaws, because everybody has them. And that's, you know, something else that I had to accept and appreciate. It's just the beauty in all of our differences, and that I have them too, and that I have flaws, and that's okay. Nobody needs to validate you as a human being. You have to validate yourself. And that was one of the biggest things that I had to learn, you know, is that self-love and that self-validation and that self-confidence, and fight for it, because everybody deserves it.
I feel like it's a very good form of artistic expression. I'm an artist. I like art. I want to show, you know, the world and just different little things on my body. And you know, we only live once, why not?
So before we get started, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself and telling us what you do for a living.
Okay. My name is Alicia Osborne, and for a living, I tattoo, and I've been a tattoo artist for 8 years now.
I feel like people enjoy tattoos because like it's basically a form of expression, just like how you express yourself like with wearing like different types of clothing and like jewelry and stuff and like makeup. It's kind of the same thing. Only difference is some people are like, oh, it's temporary, but it's like, it's your body though.
What would you say was the biggest challenge you faced at the beginning of your career?
Learning how to translate my artistic style into tattoos, because there's a lot of difference with mediums and stuff like that, like doing from like art on paper to art on skin and stuff like that. That, and it's a little bit of it's kind of hard being a girl in the industry. It's gotten way better since I started, but it was a little difficult when I started.
How many tattoos do you have?
0. There's no specific reason why I don't have any right now. It's mostly just, they cost money and I want to use my money on other things. Like, I love appreciating other people's tattoos because I think it's really cool. But I've never just sat down and been like, what would I get? Which is also kind of the problem. I mean, probably something like, I always think it's a little cheesy, but I really like when people do the, like they get, like, you know, like 2 siblings get the same tattoo, or like a family gets like the same thing somewhere. It would probably be something like that, because that seems, I don't know, I like that idea a lot.
How do you feel about the mainstreamification of the tattoo industry?
It has like good things, because then obviously I get to do more cool stuff because people are like expanding on like, you know, it's not like they pick it off the wall like they used to. It's like now more custom, so I get to be more expressive on art I design for people. And then it's kind of bad because then people are expecting to get it right then and there, like come in and like, I want a whole sleeve right now. And it's like, yeah, can't do that. So that's the only downside.
In 2016, in August of 2016, my brother got accepted to UD Law School. But the week before he started class at UD, he wanted to hang out with me and our other brother who lives out in Colorado. Our older sister came in from Virginia, and our youngest sister, there's 5 of us, was starting her senior year at Ohio Wesleyan University in Delaware, Ohio. We all go out there to see her. We have lunch, finish lunch, and then walk down the strip in downtown Delaware towards campus and just figure something out. We walk past a barber shop, and the next door over is a tattoo parlor, and my little sister goes, "Let's get matching tattoos!" And so I got this one here. We all got a V. Mine's here. I want to say my brother's got him on opposite ribs, and then I forget which one which rib my older sister got hers on. But yeah, it was still a lot of fun.
The fact it's difficult being a woman in the industry. Is there an additional challenge, you know, being a Native American in the industry?
Not that I've found. The only thing that I found that's kind of, I guess, difficult is more people who get like tattoos like of like kind of appropriate the culture is probably the most like kind of hard thing. It's hard to tell someone like, sorry, I don't want to do your dream catcher. Sorry, I don't want to do a skull with a headdress on, you know, that kind of stuff.
Do you have any tattoos?
No.
Okay. Do you have an idea of what you would want to get?
Yes.
Okay. So what's that idea?
It's an ice cream cone with a cat behind it.
It's dope. Is there like a story behind that?
Yes.
Let's hear it.
So the cat is in reference to warrior cats because we love warrior cats here. Now the story behind that is just because warrior cats is what got me through like high school and middle school, so like that's like a comfort for me. But then the ice cream cone is in reference to Daz, which was a service dog I raised. He was the first service dog I raised, and now he is like a full service dog now, and he's from the ice cream litter because his full name is Haagen-Dazs, but he went to a prison program and they didn't know how to say Daz, so they called him Daz.
Do you remember maybe the weirdest customer interaction you ever had?
I've had a few oddballs here and there. I think the most like awkward one was this guy kept talking about his like genital piercings to me, and I was like, I don't really care. And then there was like this old guy who wanted, him and his wife were Disney adults, so he wanted to get a Mickey Mouse, and I'm like, okay, cool. He's like, I just want to put it somewhere no one can see it. I'm like thinking like, okay, maybe he's gonna put it on his back of his shoulder or something, but he made me put it on his butt cheek. It was like this old guy, like 60, or close to 60. I would say somewhere between his 50s and 60s. That was probably kind of awkward. He was nice though, but it was still weird. Like, why that spot of all places?
I like neo-traditional tattoos are like the new in thing, and I don't have any on me with that style, but I really like the aesthetic of them. I don't know if any other ones pop out to me. I think traditional is also pretty cool. It's less seen, I think, nowadays, but it's pretty cool.
Do you have a preferred style of tattooing? Is there one that like stands out to you?
I feel like mine's like a mix. I feel like most of the time people describe it like somewhere kind of traditional, neo-traditional, illustrative, feminine. It's usually kind of a mix of what I do.
So I guess like growing up, I wasn't really
I was always like ignored in school, at work, all the time. I was always the other guy in the room. I was always like either the odd one out. Like I'd hang out with friends, I'd be the fifth wheel, the ninth wheel, whatever. Oddly enough, I got tattooed. About 20 tattoos later, people see me and they're like, "Oh, I love your tattoos," or "Tell me about your tattoos." It's like, I think about this a lot. I wonder, like, if I hadn't gotten tattoos, would people even approach me without them? Because to me, it just seems like they see my tattoos, they come up to me, and like that's the first thing on their mind, obviously, and like that's all they care about. And I wonder about that. Like, do you actually care about me, or do you just notice these tattoos? It's a weird little paradox, I guess, for that. But no, I don't feel judged for having any. It's just, it's my skin now. If you don't like it, keep it to yourself, because I don't give a shit what you gotta say.
Why do we think people get tattoos?
It's like a fun way to express yourself and to see, like, show, like, some people get it to, like, for memory of somebody, which is, a big thing that I do a lot of memorial tattoos, and then there's stuff like just stuff you love. Like, that's what most of my stuff, some of my stuff is like, that I have on myself is just silly stuff that I just love.
I think it's going to be a draw.
I hope it's a draw. No! Damn it. I fucked up. I love this.
The journey begins at the head of a winding driveway just off the main drag of the Wright State University campus that leads to, well, nothing anymore. Where a house once stood, there's now just an awkward sloping hill. To the left of this little patch of grass is Rockafield Cemetery. While the main area was built to honor those who donated their bodies to the medical students at Wright State, a much older and less maintained group of headstones lies just beyond. This little group of stones creates an illusion of peace, with the looming forest as a backdrop. While one could be forgiven for stopping at the cemetery, a small path running down a hill into that deciduous backdrop has much more to offer. This is the best place to enter the woods. If you keep on this path for only a few moments, the first thing you'll find is a creek cutting through the trees. It's small and mostly dried up, but there are a few fish that call it home. Between the hours of 4 and 7, you can sometimes sneak up on a few deer, stopping for a drink. As you move on from the creek, the trails become more monotonous, and at a glance, boring. However, these small paths are better understood as a system of caves, not hiking trails. The dense leaves form patches and layers of semi-permeable cave wall, and despite the diversity in species, the color palette during the spring and summer is nearly entirely green and brown. Each tunnel has smaller, branching tunnels, and a mouth that opens to a new location. Just like a system of caves, These woods can become claustrophobic, as each cave mouth leads to a new reminder of the surrounding man-made environment. Even within the trees, no matter where you go, there will still be intrusions from the outside world, warning you that you're about to leave this little oasis. Like any other cave system, you have to search for details to get a full experience. Otherwise, it largely all looks the same. The large mossy trees form stalagmites that hold up the canopy, and those that don't play host to various forms of fungus and moss. The forest is mostly made up of walnut, oak, and maple trees, and you'll be hard-pressed to find a stump or tree without something else growing on it. Each stump becomes its own little ecosystem, with spongy wood soaking up water to feed its moss. And as water rots the wood away, colonies of fungus clean up the debris. If you search for long enough, or stumble across the right tunnel, you'll find the birdwatch. This structure is almost never used for watching birds, as its few feeders have remained empty for several years. This small enclosure now largely serves as a social space for those who know about it. If you walk slowly and keep an eye out, you'll likely find these delightful pink wheat-like plants. These are Persicaria tinctoria, a type of knotweed whose leaves can be used to create indigo dye. You're also likely to find a lot of Moro's honeysuckle. This invasive species is a favorite food of most of the common animals you'll cross paths with in this forest, but is well known to be poisonous to humans. Another, far less common species you'll find is the American beautyberry. It's related to mint and also serves as a source of food for wildlife. The roots of this plant have been used by Native Americans to treat stomach aches and dysentery. A species of berry that is edible, however exceedingly rare in these tunnels, is wild strawberries. You may find a few dotting the edges of trails if you're lucky enough to beat the deer to them. These tunnels are a microcosm of a mostly lost but once thriving ecosystem in the Dayton area. The much larger, thriving forests which resemble this have mostly been paved over, settled on, or turned into farmland. This small biology preserve hosts just a few native species to identify and offer a taste of the natural environments that no longer exist here. There is a somewhat liminal quality to these short green tunnels, especially when interrupted by man-made elements. A transition in both space and time, which embodies the transition from wild to man-made spaces. While this place does offer a brief escape from the outside world, the unending pavement, there's still an inevitable conclusion that no matter which way you wander, eventually the trees will end.
My name is Reda Bakali. I'm 27 years old. I was born in Pakistan. I came here when I was less than a year old. Both my parents are born in Pakistan. They were both born and raised there. and they both came here for a better future. My dad studied here in Texas, Arlington Heights University, and my mom was a teacher here in U.S. as well. I am a preschool teacher at the Al Swady International Academy. I teach children ages 3 to 5. I love teaching younger kids. Right. We're going to read a story. Sneeze, Big Bear, Sneeze. It's by Maureen Wright. What do you think is going to happen in the story?
The leaves will blow out.
Let's see. She whirled the leaves right off the trees just as Big I feel like they have an innocence in them, and it's a joy seeing it come out.
Bear!
Big Bear sneezed in the forest. It's a private charter school where we have all the similar subjects as a public school would, and then we have Islamic studies, Quranic studies, and Arabic studies included in the daily activities. And we also have prayer, where the children are able to pray their Dhuhr prayer. That's one of the 5 prayers that we pray. They're able to fully pray and follow our faith. The trees. What is he hammering on the trees?
Leaves.
The leaves, because he thinks. Feeling. How do you think he's feeling right now?
Good.
He put all the covers in his head, and he's like, I was born Muslim, and I'm still Muslim, alhamdulillah. And yes, I identify myself as a Muslim. We wake up in the morning and we pray our morning prayer, and that starts our day off. And then we read the Quran throughout the day. We do more prayers. We do actions where it's helpful to one another. We respect our elders. We respect the women and men and children. We work with it together. I was considered different than everyone. My skin color was different. My culture was different. What I wear was different. So there was that. It was hard to see how like my clothes that I used to wear in Pakistan would not fit into to my school or my friends' gatherings. But a lot of my friends were open to seeing my culture and viewing it and learning more about my culture. But just the cultural difference was a little difficult. I would have to like turn on and turn off. So I would turn on my Pakistani culture when I was at home and turn it off when I'd go to school. I have had friends and family who have had people come up to their face and say that you need to apologize for what happened to 9/11, or you need to go back to your country. Or, for example, for my mother, she covers her face, and one man just came up to her and said that if you were near me or in my neighborhood, I would bang, bang, bang you.
We had an issue, I want to say, a couple years ago, where some white dude walked into the Islamic Center during one of the prayers and punched one of our people and tried to get past him, and several of the guys just kind of, got around him and escorted him back out of the building, and they called the police, and, so we've had some threats that have been called into the office, this is the time we live in, and the media doesn't make it any easier to be Muslim in this country. After 9/11, Muslims were all over the TV and, you know, terrorism and all this and that, you know, and we felt like we were being targeted.
In Islam, we are not supposed to spread hate. We're supposed to spread love. We're supposed to be kind to one another and not cheat one another or lie to one another. We're supposed to help one another when they need it. And we are supposed to respect every religion, respect every person as a human being, all created by God. And that is the Islamic religion. I mean, when we see another Muslim, we say Assalamu alaikum, which means peace be unto you. And then the response would be Wa alaikum assalam, which means maybe peace unto you as well.
I've worked at International Academy of Cincinnati for 3 years. I started off in preschool, and then I did 1 year in preschool, and I've done 2 years in first grade. I met Miss Reda last year. She was moving into my position in preschool. And so I kind of like showed her the ropes and taught her the curriculum and like anything she needed help with, I gave her resources. And that's how we developed this kind of friendship where, you know, we text each other and like just kind of talk about school, talk about like what's going on and just joke around about things. And Miss Reda is she's a wonderful person.
I am a dwarf, and the condition is achondroplasia, and I'm just a little person. I have shorter arms and shorter legs. I'm about 4 feet, and that is I'm just a little person.
So these are my pedal extensions. They help me reach the brake and gas, and then I'm able to drive off.
I feel like they see me as a little person first, then a Muslim, and then a Pakistani person. But I think the little person is something that catches their eye first. I've noticed that they don't say anything about my hijab. They'll say, "Oh, that's a little person," or "Oh, she's so little." I've heard that more than, "Oh, what is she wearing on her head?" I have gone to the store where people have wanted to take a picture of me, or where they've snuck a picture of me, not even asked, or where they just pointed. There are kids where they ask, "Oh, who is that? Why is she so little?" Which I understand because kids, they're still learning. But when an adult says that, that's something I don't understand. Why is that an adult saying that? It's something that I have grown up to, that I have adapted to, where I will know that people will look at me as a little person first. It's hard, but it's something that I have lived with, and I'm trying to overcome my fears and be able to go into public without fear of looking back at my shoulder like, oh, is someone looking at me, or is someone following me, or someone trying to take a picture of me. So I'm trying to work on myself and trying to make myself more brave and just be able to live life how everyone should. And like, for example, when I go to the store, if I've gone to that store many times, I know that if I go to this aisle and that aisle and that aisle, that I'll be able to lose whoever was trying to follow me or trying to take a picture of me.
I remember one time, it was a really funny story. We were studying Michelangelo in art. And so I did this thing where we taped paper underneath the desks, underneath the tables, because we had those big art tables. And we taped paper, and then I got paint and brushes and said, okay, we're going to lay under the art table and paint, and try to paint a picture, everything. And so we had to get some boxes, like copier paper boxes, and we laid them underneath the table and made her a little platform she could lay on so that she could reach the table too. And then the paint fell on her face, and she had a big green splotch down her face, and she was laughing, and we were all laughing, and it was just this really great moment because we just all took it in stride, and every time that we needed to accommodate for her, it was no problem. I'm hoping that we're getting past the first impressions and being more willing to see the person, and what's in there. What is it that makes her shine? What is it that makes her tick? And all of those things are so special.
So what's a message you would give to other, young girls that might be going through similar situations?
Like, just stay strong. That's the main thing. Don't break down, because this is just a temporary. People will start learning. I mean, from when I was in high school to now, there's been more knowledge about little people and more knowledge about Islam than there was when I was in high school. And people will start learning, and stay strong, because you're more important than they are, and you can get through it.
On December 14th, 1903, the Wright brothers bring their flyer to Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, to attempt the world's first heavier-than-air flight. Instead of having a brawl like I would have done, the brothers have agreed to let fate decide who gets to take the first flight, with a coin toss. And here they come now. The winner of this coin toss will be the man who makes history. And the coin toss goes to Wilbur. The flyer is placed on the launch rail, and Wilbur climbs aboard, ready for action. This is exciting, folks. We are moments away from witnessing history. This is it. They are moving down the rail, and they are in... Oh, heavens! I am being told that Wilbur pulled up too hard and the flyer stalled and came crashing down after a distance of just 105 feet. Good going, Wilbur. Way to go. That's all for today's program, folks, but be sure to tune back in for when they try again. Welcome back to Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, where the Wright brothers will attempt to make the world's first heavier-than-air flight. Again. They shipped their flying machine back to the workshop, repaired it, and sent it back to the beach here on December 17th, 1903. People's hopes are not high after Wilbur's failure 3 days prior, but I have been assured that today will be different. Today, they will make history. Or more accurately, Orville will make history. Since Wilbur made a hash of it so badly last time, today it's Orville's go. Orville climbs aboard, hoping to put on a better show than his brother, and just like that, we are off to the races. Oh my goodness, folks, I've never seen such a sight. By God, it's in the air. After 12 seconds and 120 feet, Orville safely puts their flying machine back on the ground. Although it's hardly leaps and bounds above Wilbur's run, the engine ran, and he didn't destroy the machine. So it still counts. But wait, I'm being told there's more. Now that they've made history, Wilbur wants a go. Gee whiz. It appears the brothers will take turns flying until the end of the day, or the machine breaks, whichever comes first. Stay tuned for the excitement. And we rejoin the action for the fourth flight of the day, and good gracious, it's Wilbur's go again. Off the rail he goes, and wowzer! He's still in the air! "852 feet, 59 seconds, the longest flight of the day. But what's this? He broke the front elevator supports on the landing. What even are those? Damn it, Wilbur, you couldn't go one more second without breaking it. Thanks a lot. Thanks to Wilbur mucking it up again, the brothers are done flying for the day. But rest assured, they will be back for more. All that's left for them now is to ship their flying machine back home and fix it again. Oh my goodness, what the hell just happened? A gust of wind has sent their flyer tumbling down the beach. After finally coming to a stop, what's left of their flying machine looks indistinguishable from an oversized campfire. But boy, oh boy, are those Wright brothers lucky to be alive. Imagine if that had happened while they were still in it. It would have made for some damn good radio. I suppose that's the end of this story, folks, on what will surely go down as one of the wackiest days in human history. But don't go anywhere, for we'll be right back after the break.
The serene Rockafield Cemetery, a local graveyard for farmers during the 18 and 1900s, rests just a stone's throw away from Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio. Located off a side road and a walk into the woods, the cemetery now serves as a place of reflection for students who'd like to consider the past and their futures. However, this grave was not always the peaceful respite that it is today. In the past, it was the site of a malicious grave robbing and ensuing investigation that remains unaccountable. Martin Rockafield was a Dayton public figure during the late 1700s into the early 1800s, and he founded this cemetery to house the graves of family members and friends, as well as residents of the farmland surrounding it. He himself was interred here in March of 1836 at the age of 74. Rockafield's memory for the most part has been forgotten, but in the year of 1932, it was still very much alive. On the evening of May 30th, 1932, Martin Rockafield's grave was desecrated. It was redug and his casket opened to allow the perpetrators to remove his remains from where they had rested for nearly a century. On the morning of May 31st, two local men, J.H. Miller and a farmer identifying himself as Mr. Bowers, contacted the police. They had found Rockafield's remains strewn next to his grave, on a burlap sack, with freshly tilled dirt and blood covering the cloth. The two men's immediate suspicion was murder. That's the way the story goes, at least. For more details, a trip to the university's archives proves useful. The Wright State University Archives has an entire collection devoted to Martin Rockafield, and the details on the cemetery itself are pretty substantial. There are fairly comprehensive family trees and dossiers about some of the families interred here, as well as the plans from Wright State when the university's founders began campus planning. But information on Martin Rockafield's grave robbing is pretty scarce. There are two main documents that discuss the incident, both of them news articles. The first is a short piece from the Dayton Journal, and it talks about the details as Miller and Bowers relayed them to the police. It mostly discusses the police's involvement and suspected motives for the crimes. The article reads, "The deputy expressed belief that the robber had intended to dig into other graves in search of valuables. He was thought to have been frightened away, however, by the barking of Miller's dog." The second article, however, tells a bit of a different story. This one is from an undocumented and quite a bit longer than previous source, and it points to murder. The text reads, "Spots on the sack on which the skeleton lay bore marked resemblance to bloodstains, and the first thought that entered the minds of these two men was that a murder had possibly been committed and the grave used to hide the body." Martin Rockafield was a person of importance in the surrounding areas, and with admiration on that level, animosity always follows. On his headstone it reads, funeral text, Proverbs 11:19. This verse reads, "Whoever is steadfast in righteousness will live, but he who pursues evil will die." This particular citation on a headstone has certain implications, and could explain why Rockafield's grave was targeted out of all those in the cemetery to obscure this possible murder. Unfortunately for us, no further evidence was ever found. The article continues, "They visited the plot with shovels Sunday and dug 5 feet into the grave. Their efforts failed to disclose anything to bear out their suspicion, but Mr. Miller still contended it was possible the person who first dug into the grave tunneled into the sidewall and secreted the body of his victim with great care." The text goes on to talk about who took possession of Rockafield's remains, but that's the end of the published information. In the end, the police investigation on Rockafield's desecration turned up nothing. No murder victims were ever found, no valuables were obviously missing from his gravesite, and no perpetrators were ever suspected. This crime was shuffled off into the police records, and nothing like it has ever happened in the cemetery since. Martin Rockafield's remains were presumably returned to their resting site, and the cemetery has fallen out of use over the 90 years since then. As it stands today, it's as peaceful and serene as it was in 1932, if a little worse for wear. And history is left with unanswered questions. Why this man? Why this grave? What did somebody have to hide? The public may never know what happened all those years ago, but in the meantime, they can still enjoy the scenery.
So I gotta ask about the hauntings of the place.
Yes, it's haunted. Do you have any other questions? Well, the building goes back. It was completed in 1871. It's been all sorts of businesses over the years. It started out as a hardware store. But it's been a bakery, it's been an insurance agency, it's been a custom interior painting business. It's been all sorts of things. So it's, in some ways, this is the newest old building in Tip City, but one of the older ones downtown.
When I started working here, I knew it was haunted. They had warned me that there was a couple spirits in here. About 6 months after I started, there was a lady who came in. She'd been browsing the books. She came up to the counter. She's like, I don't want to alarm you, but did you know you have a ghost in here? I'm like, oh yeah, we have a few. She's like, 'cause someone just told me to get out of his library. We've had books fly off the shelves, full body apparitions, voices. I came in this morning and heard chatter. I'm like, it's not even 8 a.m.
I guess as far as the hauntings go, like, do you know about like all the deaths that happened here and like how that started, or?
Well, that's kind of a common misperception. I'm sure there are some hauntings that relate to specific events. My own feeling is that most don't. Here, for instance, we started out with 2 spirits, and virtually everyone who has worked here over the last 30 years has encountered them in some way. Either subtle things like doors opening and closing and footsteps, or full body apparitions. Over the years, we've gotten quite a few more, and I suspect that's because of the hundreds of investigations. I think that has attracted interest on the other side. So now we've got a slew of them, but they're all friendly. They're all benign. If anything, I knock on wood, but if anything, they seem to be a bit protective. So we're very comfortable with them.
Now they do come and go freely, so it could be we've only got 1 or 2, or we've got a whole lot in here at any given time. But we have counted through investigations 3 kids, 13 adults, 2 cats, and a dog.
And how do you like figure out like who's like what spirit is what in your investigations?
So going through investigations, we ask for names through EVPs. We do pendulum sessions where it gives us yes and no answers. Mostly through EVPs and investigations, just getting the equipment to give us verify yes or no.
The faster the better. The faster the better. I'm assuming the highest.
So you're interviewing the ghost, basically.
You're basically interviewing the ghost. This is our history room. Watch that step.
Over the threshold.
Ooh. You'll hear what sounds like people pulling books and stuff off the shelf. It happens all the time. You'll see people peeking around the corner, around the desk area.
Oh my gosh.
This is our mystery room.
The perfect room.
What houses all of our mystery books? This is the room where the kids like to hang out. Mostly Erica. She's our 8-year-old little girl. She's not very receptive to men a whole lot. So there's been times where groups have come in and the men will feel a very heaviness, and when they walk out of the room, they're fine. So
What?
Yeah, if she doesn't want you in here, she'll let you know. Erica, if you're in here with us, can you turn the flashlight on? You don't have to be scared of these guys. They're not going to hurt you. And I'm in here, so you know me. Go ahead and turn it off, please. Go ahead and turn it off. Thank you. If you get touched, don't freak out. I've had my butt touched I don't know how many times in here. I had a guy sitting at the top of the steps, had one of the toy jacks thrown at him.
Love it.
Yeah.
I'm for it. I want to get hit with something.
Whatever you do, don't be a Zach Baggins. Our spirits do not go along with provoking or anything along those lines. If you say please and thank you, they're more likely to respond to you.
No, no. I felt like an actual force pushing that. Oh, no. That freaked me out. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Welcome to the next circle. Here we go.
It's blinking red,
Well, it's too bright. Can you dim it? Can you dim that light?
Is that better?
This is the most active area of the building. We have shadow figures, full body apparitions down here.
Love it. They are more than welcome to hang out with us.
We'd be very pleased if you let us know you're here.
What about the skeptics that come here?
So we've had a skeptic come in during an investigation with another group, and when he left, he was no longer a skeptic. And I tell anybody that's a skeptic that they don't believe in it, that kind of stuff, to come spend a night in here. You won't be a skeptic when you leave.
Was that you I just saw?
Have you had any employees just come in first day and then leave like right after with anything like that?
I haven't had any employees quit because of the spirits. I do know the spirits usually tend to check out the employees first day. I know Haley, the girl that works here now, she had quite a few experiences her first day.
The only time it's ever spooked me per se is I was downstairs putting stuff away and I heard what I thought was maybe just a couple on the end shift or something, and I turned around and it was like someone pulled a book off the top shelf and it stayed there for a second and then fell to the floor.
Oh my gosh.
That was the only time I was like, okay, I don't know if someone's in a bad mood or something, but I'm going to go back upstairs.
Yep.
But otherwise it's been pretty tame. Sometimes it's footsteps, or you think someone's coming downstairs and no one comes to the bottom of the stairs, or I've heard my name a handful of times. I think it's usually the kids. It seems like a higher pitched voice.
On a good day.
Yeah, on a good day.
How they're feeling.
And they like Haley.
That's what she was saying earlier. So aside from the hauntings of this place, what other events has the store? You mentioned the fire. What else has the store had to face in the past few years?
Really nothing of consequence. Thank goodness. The fire was sufficient, thank you. And this was a fire that was like the number 5 headline on Reddit the next day, so it was a big one.
I could see the flames from miles away because the flames were so big. So that was about 5 in the morning. And then they didn't let us in until about 2:30. We had 5 different fire departments pumping thousands of gallons of water in, and it was finally put out, but it was decimated. The upstairs was. And we had a lot of water and smoke damage done in the store. So we knew we wanted to rebuild, but we had to wait on a structural engineer to come to let us know whether the building was structurally sound. So if it was structurally sound, we were rebuilding and reopening. If not, we were going to rebuild and sell the building. But we were able to rebuild and to restock and came back, and the community was awesome, and could have been a lot worse, but at least, you know, we're back.
But we were able to recover lots of books, and we were storing them off-site. Local church, Ginghamsburg Church, gave us a big space to store them while we did the reconstruction. The store felt empty for the first time ever, and we couldn't figure it out. And then in December, suddenly they were back and rocking and rolling. And I mean, full body apparitions, just all kinds of stuff going on. And it took us a couple of days to figure out that that quiet period was when the books had left. So they went with the books. And when the books came back, they came back.
It's great to have a small community because everybody knows everybody and everybody helps everybody out. And when we had our fire, the community really rallied behind us and helped in ways people wouldn't even have imagined that it could have helped.
Now the wait is over. After nearly a year of hard work, Tip City's beloved bookstore is back in business.
How would I describe Browse Awhile in Tip? I would say it's a bit of a hidden gem. It really is a special little niche area in our community. People take great pride in it. People from out of town love to come here. They love our stories, they love our ghosts, they love our books, they love what we do, and we're a bit of an oddball. You don't really see too many independent bookstores thriving like we do, and you know, we're proud to be able to offer our services to the community and really to the world. It's a great place.
It's been through all this, but like it's been thriving still. Like, is there like some sort of like spiritual force that's keeping it up, or like?
Well, you never know. Those things tend to be pretty invisible. As in all things, you just try to throw out as much positive energy as you can, and if you're lucky, it comes back to you. But to a large extent, we all create our own realities. So you just sort of hope for the best, and you think good thoughts and treat people kindly, and what happens, happens.
I don't know. Outside of it is good. I'd have to very
It's the chiller. It's the chiller. What the fuck? What? I have to buy this now. I just have to. Oh my gosh.
Hey. We're live for the people. Hello.
Hello.
Hey everyone.
Rick, you want to kick us off? Yeah, so we're going to do a little live Q&A, if we can get some questions in the chat. Can everybody hear us okay? Don, we want to monitor that chat and see.
Sounds good.
Okay, sounds good? All right, so we're going to start with some introductions, starting over here at this end of the table. Chris, if you want to start us off.
Sure. My name is Christopher McKinney, and I am the director of Reda.
See ya.
Hi, my name's Ryan Duncan, and I was the director of Inkspression.
My name is Matthew Wilson. I directed 170, the doc about Christy Archer's weight loss.
My name is Mike Weimer. I directed Awhile about the haunted bookstore in Tip City.
I am Ashley Boskell. I directed the audio documentary about my family's plastic bag prank war.
My name is Lane Dawson. I directed the documentary entitled The Second Death of Martin Rockafield about the grave robbing.
Hey, I'm Dominic. I directed First Flight, the one with the stupid radio voice.
I'm Colby Ricker. I go by Rick. I did Green Tunnels.
My name is George LaBeouf, and I directed Promises in the Attic.
I'm Andrew Kunkel. I directed the doc In the Rough about the golfer going through a quarter-life crisis.
Hi, my name is Zach Davis. I directed the film Don't Mess Around with Jim, the Jim Davis story. So yeah.
All right. So do we have any questions from anybody in the audience?
In the chat.
In the chat.
We do.
Hey,
Nathan had a question.
Nathan had one.
Nathan had a question.
Where at? Oh, we gotta go back up.
Just type them down. Ashley.
Mom, love you.
Oh my god.
Okay, I see Nancy's question. Can y'all talk about the process of developing the stories, like how much planning went into it, how much changed as a result of filming and interviewing? So we can start with Chris again.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, can you guys talk about the process of developing the stories, how much planning went into it, how much changed as a result of filming and interviewing?
Changed as a result of the interview?
Like on the fly, how much changed?
Okay, wow. Well, first off, I appreciate your question. Who asked that?
Nathan.
Nathan, thank you so much. That is a lot to touch on. Let me try to summarize as best as I can without taking up too much time. For me, the process of planning actually started with our first assignment in our documentary film class. I did an interview with my fiance Emily, who actually works at the El Sweetie International Academy. I made Reda, which is the documentary about. She is a Muslim teacher, but she also is a little person as well. And but anyway, that interview with Emily got the class sort of engaged in conversation about like a private Muslim charter school and how they've been embracing of Emily, who is not of the Muslim faith, but they're very embracing of American culture, and it just got the gears turning of how embracing they are of us, but unfortunately there's this stigma of American culture not being embracing of them. And Emily said I really needed to talk to her friend Reda, who worked along with her, and so I set up a pre-interview, and she just was a light, I could tell right away that she was a really powerful woman who has overcome a lot of things in her life. And that really spoke volumes to me. I love stories that are important to tell, that need to be, it's like a source of inspiration. So I decided right from there that there was definitely a story. And when it came to making the film, I had a little bit of bureaucratic things I had to do with paperwork. I do have minors in the film, which are Reda students. So I had to work with El Sweetie International Academy along with Wright State University to make sure that all legalities were covered. I had forms that were signed off on and everything of that nature. And then I took myself along with a small crew, Mike Weimer included, and we were just very, we were welcomed with open arms to film. And I had this idea of making this, to represent her story in a very spiritual way, with a lot of stillness and a lot of just to show her story in the most respectful way as I could, with a lot of grace. There wasn't too much change. The interview, as structured, actually told my story, and I wanted her to tell her story on her terms, which is why things are spoken about in the order that they are. I felt that was extremely important to show her respect, and to also, I just felt like subverting expectations of what you think the documentary is going to be about was really important. I don't know if that, hopefully that summarizes everything, so thank you, Nathan, I appreciate it.
And Ryan, you want to answer that question as well?
Yeah, so for me, I did a lot of planning. I'm a pre-planner. Like, I reached out to Alicia in September about, hey, could I film you tattooing? I reached out to everybody. Like, everybody I interviewed was in the program, because I wanted to, like, needle this thread of connectivity of artists. Like, everybody in the documentary is an artist in one way, shape, or form. So, there's a lot of beauty in tattooing, and just, the planning really helped, because if I had waited a week to reach out to Alicia, she probably would have been booked, and I would have been, screwed. So, yeah, and then just everything came together really well, thanks to, we had a ton of footage, and I was nervous. I'm like, we have all this footage. I don't know how I'm going to make this into a story, and then this guy right here was able to do it with my notes. So, like, yeah.
For my doc, Christy Archer is actually my cousin. So when it came to planning, I had a pretty good idea of how I wanted to present the story and, like, the subtopics I wanted to hit within it. The interview that I did with Christy was over an hour total. So cutting it down to, like, the most essential 10 minutes or so was a little difficult, but I think it kind of encapsulates everything I felt needed to be said about her topic. And as far as production goes, I didn't really have many hiccups with getting locations. I once had the idea of filming in a grocery store, kind of following her around, like, to see some of what her diet is, but grocery store I wanted to film in wouldn't allow it, so we ended up getting that B-roll of her cooking in her house. But other than that, it all came together really nicely. I feel like I learned a lot, and I had a blast making it.
Yeah. For me, I was very stressed going into the doc semester. And not to say like I needed something to do, but I've always loved ghosts. I believe in ghosts. I've had experiences with ghosts. And I'm 10 minutes away. Tip City's my hometown, and the store's 10 minutes away from my house. So I decided just to stop in and be like, hey, I'm from Wright State. You guys mind if how would you guys feel about getting a doc made about you guys? And they were so open arms. They were so welcoming to me and Matt and Chris, just to go there and shoot them and see what they do on a daily basis. And the ghosts were just as friendly, if not friendlier. So I'm very thankful for the people of Browse Awhile for letting us into their store and letting us literally browse a while and get a look at their lives. So thank you guys if you're watching.
Yeah.
Going into the sound doc assignment for this class, I was not entirely sure what I wanted to do, and then we had a family Zoom call with my grandparents, and it was hilarious because they started talking about this. Out of like nowhere, they started talking about this prank war that they had, and I was like, So I just, because they, my grandparents were coming down for a family get-together anyway, and I figured while they're here, if they're agreeable to it, I will interview my mother and grandfather about this, and we got it done.
For me, I've always been very into like true crime and ghost stories. I love a good ghost story. And previously this semester we had a sound documentary, which we saw 2 wonderful sound documentaries, and I did mine of
Heard.
What was that?
Heard 2 sound
Heard
documentaries.
I see them, just because you guys can't see them.
They had visual.
Yeah, we had a sound documentary assignment. I did mine on like the entirety of Rockafield Cemetery, and then in doing research for that documentary, I uncovered this like weird grave robbing that happened, and I was like, ooh, I want to do something that focuses a little bit more on that. And so I did not have like any interviews or anything to worry about. I just went out there and I filmed what I needed to, and then I filmed me like doing some of the research, and I stuck it all together on a soundtrack, and it turned out really well, and I was excited to have it.
We do have a lot of questions, so for the last few of us, we're going to try to speed up a little bit with this kind of more general questions. So we have some
I love historical coincidences and just strange series of events. And there was so much that wasn't told about the story of the first flight that made the story so much better that I felt like it'd be a disservice not to tell it, especially considering it's just so funny.
For me, I love walking around out in those woods, and I had a plan to kind of do a story through a specific trail system, but it turned out better just doing the doc as a general portrait and getting the feel of what it's like to just be out in the woods at peace, and some of the kind of claustrophobia of knowing that that space is so small. So that was really what I wanted to convey.
For me, I grew up in Dayton, and I love living in Dayton, and I love the history of Dayton, and I wanted to share that with everybody else. And one of the best stories that Dayton has is John Henry Patterson and the Dayton flood, and also the things that he did before the flood. And so I wanted to tell that story, and I wasn't quite sure how I was going to tell it until after I had interviewed Alex. And after I was able to talk to him, I was able to like really structure it out, and it turned out great.
I knew I wanted to do this documentary on my brother pretty much right away when I knew I was going to be making a documentary. From filming to completion, some stuff did change. A lot of the visuals stayed the same. I had the idea of the dream sequence with the blue and the shot from the course of the simulator being cut together. Like that stuff I planned out way ahead. The interview process changed a lot. We had a few interviews where we got his general ideas, and then from there we kind of morphed the narrative of what he wanted to tell, and I really worked with him to tell his story. So that was the main shift, was how the interview was cut together.
Yeah, for me, I've always wanted to make a movie and a film just about my grandfather, and so like going into it, I had a little bit of knowledge of, him as a person with, having the firearms and, growing up around my hometown and stuff. But like when I initially went into it, I had like all these cool ideas for shots, because he has like a pool, and I would like shoot like underwater and like do like a bunch of like cool shit and like have him like point a gun at the camera and stuff. Like I wanted to go like all out John Wick style, craziness. But like the more I got to interview him, the more like I just went balls deep into as like just fully submitting myself into like his story and himself as a person. Like I got to know him better, and I got to really change the entire structure and the storyline of the documentary to suit him as a person rather than my expectations of him. But it was an awesome experience. Like I knew stories about him that you guys saw in the movie that I never even knew, like him teething on like an old pistol. Like I mean that suits his character so well. So like I had a lot of fun with it, and definitely want to make more movies like that. So yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
So we have a specific question for Ryan. So Noah wants to know, for the tattoo doc, did you get a tattoo during it?
Okay, so I didn't get a tattoo. My wife was the subject. She made it a lot easier than us having to like ask a random person that Alicia was working on. So she's the one who got the owl tat. I did actually get a tat like last Friday in honor of Doc Night. It's the drill from Duran Lagan. So I'm an anime nerd and I got anime tattoos, so I was like, hell yeah, let's go.
Hell yeah. Awesome. And then a real quick question for everybody again.
Okay.
What was your favorite thing that you did on any of these docs, whether it was directing, writing, whatever?
Okay, well, for my doc specifically, I directed, and I was also a cinematographer, and I enjoy the whole process between directing, cinematography, and editing. But I really did enjoy working cinematography for Ryan's documentary. I did some for Matt's documentary as well as Mike's documentary, and that was a cool process. I love doing that.
For me, it was definitely just having a group of dudes together, like people together, to like make my silly idea come alive. I said this at Doc Night, the in-person one. I'll say it again. Over the summer, I had no idea what I was going to do when I heard I had to make 3 documentaries, and tattoo was the first thing that came to mind because I saw my tattoo on my leg, and it was a silly idea that then we got together and we gave birth to it, and that's amazing to me.
My favorite part of the process was actually all the days that we actually spent filming, because when you're actually filming, there's a level of kind of stress that goes along with that, because you're hoping everything turns out right and you're hoping that you get everything that you need, and so it can be stressful when you're actually in the filming process, but looking back on it, I had a lot of fun with actually going out with a small crew of people and actually getting it made.
My favorite part about the process was, like Ryan said, having a group of people together just to work on something. And my favorite experience during the making of my doc was definitely spending the night in the store. That was quite a trip. So.
I was just delighted to be like just getting the different perspectives of my mom and grandpa, and it was just really nice because now I have that forever.
I think my favorite part was honestly getting like B-roll shots and doing the research and getting photos of all of the old documents that I was able to use in my documentary, and like finding a place to fit those little pieces of history in there.
My favorite part of the process is a very specific, strange story. When I was recording my voiceover lines for the project that you just saw, Mike was on the other side of the sound booth window recording his own audio for a much more somber and serious and sad project than mine. And after the end of delivering these bombastic radio lines, I would look over to see Mike in the middle of his very heartfelt narration, just shaking and trying not to break.
My favorite part of the process, honestly, I honestly enjoyed working on Andrew's doc a lot, and it kind of became the thing that I was most invested in. So I really enjoyed being his cinematographer. He has a really clear vision for what he wants, and it makes my life really easy, so I was able to really have fun, get into the atmosphere, and play with the camera. And I enjoyed working on a score for that as well. Like my involvement in that was my favorite. My favorite part of the process. My favorite part of my...
There we go. We're back.
Oh, we're back?
We're back. Hello, we're back.
Okay. It cuts out.
My favorite part of my documentary was just being out in the woods and finding little things to take pictures and videos of. So really, it's just being behind the camera that I'm into.
Lots of mosquitoes.
See what your mom said.
Yes, I did. I saw that, Mom.
George, you're up.
My favorite part was finally getting it all together and editing it together and seeing the vision actually take shape and being able to watch it and listen to the audio, make sure everything was right, and seeing, especially the shots that I had gotten, the things that I had filmed, seeing those pieced together and everything, just having it become the actual project that you envisioned at the beginning is my favorite part.
Yeah, I love the whole directing and filming process. It was amazing to work with my brother to just help tell his story and collaborate with him on that, because he had all these ideas, and we met before, so I knew the concepts that I wanted and that he wanted to tell, and it was amazing being able to like prod and poke at him to get those ideas out, and I think it helped him a lot personally. And then just like the actual filming, just being on a golf course with a camera was just amazing because those landscapes are ridiculous, and I knew my cinematographer Rick would be able to do an amazing job on that. I gave him direction obviously, but I pretty much just let him run wild, and he did an amazing job, as you could see. Yeah, it was just amazing.
Yeah, for me, one of my favorite parts of the documentary that I did with Jim was the parts that we kind of cut out. Because the thing is that with my style, I guess, of doing the doc was that I kept my cameras rolling as much as possible. So if I had 6-7 hours of footage for just that 10-minute film. But a short story I could tell about you and me, because Andrew was helping me film for the house tour segment, and then also him on the shooting range. And while we were on the shooting range interviewing him on the bench, we came across this guy who was hillbilly as fuck. Came up and was riding an ATV with the top on it,
blacked out. It was like a Batmobile.
It was like the Batmobile golf cart, and he's wearing a trucker hat, and he has a Joe Biden shirt, but he's dressed like a Taliban guy or something like that.
Was crazy.
It was crazy. It was what are you guys doing? And he was
yeah.
we're making a movie. He was kind of well, have fun, and but.
We had no idea what to expect when he was rolling up. He could have been angry.
No idea to expect. Because earlier that day, we had that one guy come up, and he was just kind of well, you guys are supposed to have, a permit and stuff like that, but I'll let you slide. I mean, it's that's the funny part, is that when you're just on the fly, off the cuff, just filming, you never know what you're gonna get. And that's what I love about the documentary, is just kind of you can keep the cameras rolling and get something really, really good that you didn't intend on finding, or intend on, being able to have that in a motion picture. But, like I said, I just love the spontaneity of it, you know what I mean? So.
All right, and then we have a question specifically for George. Should we remember Patterson in regards to his treatment of his employees as a humanitarian or a pragmatist who understood how to have a productive workhouse? So what should we be remembered, or workforce, my bad. What should we remember him for?
I think you could remember him for any of those things. He was such an interesting guy, and he did a lot. I mean, not only was there the productive workforce, but there was the sales training to help grow a business. This didn't really get into the doc. I had to cut it out, but when he first purchased the National Manufacturing Company that he renamed the National Cash Register Company, when he first purchased it, all of his social circle and colleagues and fellow businessmen were telling him, you got a limit. Nobody wants cash registers. They're junk. And he said, yeah, watch. And said, and now, if you go into a place, there's cash registers everywhere. And if you look, the next time you're at an ATM machine, the next time you're checking out somewhere, just look, and there's a good chance it'll say NCR on it. And that is John Henry Patterson's most visible legacy anyway. So it's really a difficult thing to say what you should specifically remember him for, instead of just trying to remember him, because he was such a fascinating guy.
All right, and we have another specific question for Ryan.
Okay.
Your wife wants to know, she wants you to tell everybody what funny tattoo you want.
Okay, so I got this drill recently. There's two actually in mind, and I'll try to keep it super quick. One, I want to get Jeff the Shark. He's like a recently introduced character in the Marvel comics. It's a shark that's like a dog. It has legs and everything. It's cute. I'm thinking something right here would be cool. And then the other one I want to do is in reference to Underpants Gnomes from South Park, where I'm going to have 3 of them stacked up on the back of my calf, and it looks like they're trying to steal my underwear. And I'll just have the step 1, steal underpants. Step 2, step 3, profit. Just get silly. I'm at the point in my life where I want to get silly tattoos, so yeah.
All right, and then we're going to try to keep this one a little brief as well. So what are some of your guys' film or director inspirations, and what would you like to do next, in the future? starting with Chris again.
Okay, so I have a few. My favorite director and filmmaker that is still working to this day after decades and decades is Sylvester Stallone. I view him as a filmmaker first, more so than an actor, just because his process and discipline. He's a very working class filmmaker. I appreciate that. And if you know anything about his history, it's just an incredible story. Cinematography wise, I feel like I love like Michael Mann, David Ayer films. I love how they get in the space of the characters. With this film specifically, Reda, it's strange, but like I was really impressed with like the cinematography of Tarkovsky and Stalker, and not to say that this film is like that, but by any means. But like the stillness, really, like it's amazing how much you can evoke like spirituality just through like just stillness and resting and giving things time to breathe. What was the next question? What to do next? Or?
What would you like to do next? Yeah.
My ultimate dream is to work with Sylvester Stallone, but we'll see. I don't know if I'll get there in time. He's in his 70s, but other than that, I just want to work in the industry. I love filmmaking. I love being around it, and it's like I always say, it's like Rocky 2, where he's just got to be around it. He can't necessarily fight at that point, but he's just got to be around it. And that's exactly how I feel about filmmaking. I love cinematography. I love directing, but as long as I can be in the industry working, I will be happy.
I'll try to keep this quick. I love sci-fi and I love regular people. I think good sci-fi looks at the human condition and examines the everyday struggles and uses the fantastical elements to like get people in, So my answer shouldn't shock you. Denis Villeneuve is probably my favorite currently. Although Barry Jenkins has like blown me away. Everything I've watched from Barry is incredible. So if I could, because Denis kind of struggles with like some human characters, making them really good connections with them, whereas Barry's nothing but connection to these people. So if I could take the best of Barry and the best of Denis, pair them together, I'd be pretty content. Realistically, if I end up in like a writer's room and writing and maybe directing a couple things, I'll be content with that. Like the dream's to win an Oscar, but I gotta be realistic.
So for my documentary, I didn't really have any filmmakers that I took much inspiration for overall, just because I don't watch, like documentary, I would say I prefer narrative cinema more than documentary. So I didn't really have like specific inspirations for this doc. A lot of it came from suggestions from people I was working with, like Chris. He did a lot of some of the cinematography, and so I would take notes from him. Andrew, I took some notes from him also with like some shots and stuff like that. But one of my favorite directors in general is Edgar Wright, and I want to focus on editing. Editing is one of my favorite aspects, and I edited Ryan's Inkspression doc, and I kind of took what Edgar Wright does. He edits to the beat of music a lot, so I tried to do that. I tried to incorporate that into Ryan's. And then as far as what I want to do next, I know I'm going to be editing a couple of spring productions that are going to be going on within the class. That's pretty much as I have planned at the moment. I don't think too far ahead in the future very often. So,
for me, I have too many inspirations to name. I get a lot of inspiration from not just filmmakers, but musicians and painters and from all sorts of different mediums. So I kind of treat the work I want to make like paintings. Whatever comes to mind, that's what I just want to hone in on and create. So, what do I want to do next? I love writing and I love filming as well and directing. So I definitely want to see where that takes me. Like Matt, I don't think too far ahead. I just go with the flow and just see what happens. So we'll see what happens.
Inspirations are difficult. Some of my favorite things though is like I listen to a lot of podcasts, lots of like mystery or spooky kind of podcasts sometimes, comedy. I like silly, sweet kind of narratives. In terms of what I want to do next, I did. I would eventually like to make a spooky sound documentary that I didn't do with regards to this project because I was too appreciative. I was too excited about what I ended up doing, obviously. But you know, we'll see what.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Nice. In regards to this documentary, one of my biggest influences was BuzzFeed Unsolved. It was I didn't really intend for it to come across that heavy, but it did. I love BuzzFeed Unsolved, both supernatural and true crime. I love movies by Jordan Peele. I love movies from A24. I'm a huge, huge horror fan. I love horror, and ultimately, if I had to choose, I don't know if I could choose between them, but in the future, I would love to work on either horror sets or documentary sets, or maybe both. You know, maybe some spooky documentaries. That is my ultimate goal, is to just be involved somewhere in that process on set.
They're gonna reboot it with you as the host.
BuzzFeed Unsolved? I would love to host BuzzFeed Unsolved.
Can I do it with you?
Can I host BuzzFeed Unsolved, please?
You're gonna get the full reboot of Unsolved Mysteries.
Exactly.
Yes.
For me, I get a lot of inspiration from comedy films like Edgar Wright, like Matt brought up. And what I want to do next is I want to do a slightly janky animation of my sound doc because I think that'd be really funny.
For me, I get a lot of inspiration from sci-fi as well. Denis Villeneuve. I mean, everybody who's seen like any of his recent stuff is obviously obsessed with him now. I'm also a big fan of Ridley Scott, Alex Garland.
Oh, yeah.
Like main three inspirations, and for whatever reason, Jurassic Park remains like my landmark film that I can't get over it.
Yeah.
So that's really like what I think of when I go out filming. And for what I would like to do next, I mean, kind of what Chris was saying. Anything I can get in the industry, I would love to do. But my ultimate goal is to be director of photography on major Hollywood films. Direct if I can. I would love to write anything in that wheelhouse. Working for any kind of studio, I really would love to do. George, you're up.
I was inspired to start being a filmmaker when I was a kid. When I first saw Requiem for a Dream by Darren Aronofsky, and
What a
Darren
film to be
Aronofsky's
inspired by.
masterpiece. Well, that was like the first film where I was like, "Whoa, you can do that with movies! Oh my god!" And so I really like his films because all of his characters usually have like a singular focus that they're chasing after, and it's usually something kind of like, to quote from Matt's documentary, chasing the dragon, especially with Requiem for a Dream, because it's about heroin. But I also really like Ken Burns' documentaries, and I don't know if that came across from my documentary. That's what I was going for, was just a really simple and easy to digest substance over style documentary with what I did with John Henry Patterson. And what I'd like to do next is probably, if I can, turn my documentary into something feature length, if at all possible, because there's just so, I mean, that's, you know, the cliff notes of John Henry Patterson. That's not diving in deep to any of the other stuff that he did or things that went on. Like, there were funny stories that I had to cut out, like that he didn't allow smoking in his factory, and there's a story, this guy was, you know, up on one of the upper floors, and there's an open window by him, and he's smoking a cigar, and someone goes, "Hey, Patterson's coming," and he's like, "Shit," and throws a cigar at the window, and it, you know, it's like opened like this, and it just slips right through, and he's just like, "Oh, thank God," and Patterson comes up and he's like, "Hey, was someone smoking up here?" "No, none of us were smoking up here," and, you know, that story didn't make it in because of the limited time, so I just like to make a bigger documentary so I can get stories like that into it.
My inspiration is going to sound really similar to Chris's, but I love stillness and spirituality, letting spaces like breathe and letting people move around within them. I like stuff like capturing people in hallways and on commute, and just like the moments that you wouldn't typically find important. I think those kind of give more of an insight into people. I love directors like
One Car Why.
I love directors like Ozu, some early Sofia Coppola stuff. Paul Thomas Anderson. Just really, I love like personal human stories about connection and longing and stuff like that. And I tried to do that with my doc. So.
Yeah, for me, one of my big inspirations, it's funny because obviously, you know, being a film major is going to sound so stereotypical. I am a Tarantino fan.
Yep.
I can't deny that, but
Sorry, guys.
Sorry, I don't like feet. Okay, that's out of the question.
You don't?
Every time.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
All right, let's not get
Everyone
your
take off
own.
their
Let's not get
shoes
your
right
own.
now.
Let's go.
Stick to the point, Zach.
The thing is like one of my big inspirations, and probably some other people can relate to this. Growing up in my generation, has been a lot of like online sources. Like one of my big inspirations for like documenting, like interviewing people was like Channel 5 or like All Gas No Brakes. Like I mean that was a big one for my documentary. And then like other like YouTube documentaries like Full Force that iDubbbz did years ago and stuff. Like you know having like really focusing on like these weird like but like really like genuine people and trying to just like dig deeper and try to find like who they are. And like I said, just stylistically wise, I really find myself coming back to like Scorsese because I really love like the fast-paced kind of like editing style where like, you know, the audience wants to see this at this point, so I'm going to show this at this point, you know. So that's the way I feel when it comes to filmmaking. Is just kind of like it should be just cut, you know, concise, and just have fun with it. You know what I mean? Just have fun and let it be fast and fun. But yeah, like in the future, obviously, I mean, I would love to make more documentaries. I'd like to like go to like big like social events and kind of like cover them, and you know, find some like colorful characters here and there, and also try like to. I also like to kind of like integrate like my documentary style with like my narrative style as well. So yeah.
All right. If we have one more question, we can take one more, and then we're probably gonna be done for the day.
Okay.
George about the. Oh, did we have another question for George?
Yeah, for George. Do you think there's any truth to the legend that Patterson's efforts during the flood kept him out of jail? From my mom.
From what I understand is no. A lot of people believe that because of the timing, but ultimately what kept Patterson out of jail was his acquittal at appeal. The prosecution had evidence that maybe wasn't completely exculpatory, but it was at least beneficial to the defense, and it came out that they withheld that information in the initial round of discovery of the trial process, and so that's that's an acquittal right there every time.
Yeah, do the last question.
All right. Yeah, you go for it.
That's for my buddy. Yeah.
Did any of you face any unexpected challenges during your process, and how did you overcome them?
Okay.
We'll start with Chris, and we'll try to be quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, for me, I was not expecting, again, sort of the legality aspect. There was concern on behalf of Wright State as well as El Sweetie, understandably so, because they don't know me necessarily, and they are, I'm sure, used to people, they don't want to be represented in a slanderous way, and that is not at all what I was going in to do. So that had to be worked out first, and then I have the scene with the students who are kids, and I worked really hard to be allowed to use that because to me it was integral in telling Reda's story, and it just showed the humanity within what I was trying to evoke. So that was the most difficult thing I encountered.
For me, it was like two. When we did our regular people interviews that weren't tattoo artists, I did not anticipate needing a key for where we shot the interviews. Luckily, one of the seniors hooked us up. That was great. The big one, thank God Chris got to the tattoo parlor before me. I was just assuming we'd be able to interview upstairs, but it was a super busy Friday. The sound would have been terrible. Luckily, they had a basement. We prettied it up. Like, we moved stuff around, and you guys watched the interviews with Alicia, the tattoo artist, that came out looking great. We got lucky. Something about filmmakers just don't want to admit. There's a lot of luck to it.
One of the only challenges I faced was when I wanted to film at the grocery store for one of my B-roll shots. But we ended up coming up with that backup plan of filming Christy cooking in her house. So after coming up with that backup plan, everything went pretty smoothly with mine, which I'm really thankful for. Luckily, Christy is really open about her story, so I didn't really have to do much with my questions to get her to open up, which I was really thankful for. So yes, thankfully mine went pretty smoothly.
For mine, the first day of shooting, we didn't grab a boom mic, so we couldn't do interviews the first day. So we had to go back for that. And at the end of the film, you saw the book fall, and I did buy that book and took it home with me. Haven't read it. Don't know if I will. And
I gotta scrape it out for you. You have to read
I
it.
do.
You're so
attractive. Here's the thing, ever since I brought it home, my Premiere profile has been fucked. So I have like 5 files for one doc now, so that's my story.
I didn't face any really challenges during the recording process because I had lovely interviewees.
Yeah.
They were amazing.
She has to
Both
say
of
that.
them. No, I didn't. But it was hilarious to come upstairs and hear the two of them arguing with each other over what is and is not correct. That was hilarious, and I'm so sad that I wasn't able to record that during the process. But what you gonna do?
I had 2 main problems during mine. The first was that all of my subjects were unfortunately not available for interview.
Oh.
They had been dead for between 150 and 90 years. My second largest issue was mosquitoes.
Oh, yeah.
Damn it, you stole mine.
That's true.
Big oof.
My leg was destroyed.
Yeah, because that was what mine was going to be. Is the hardest part of this process was I helped Lane and Rick shoot both of theirs out in the cemetery the same day, and woke up the next morning with somewhere between 17 and 28 bug bites, all up and down my arms and legs.
Yeah,
But
that's bad.
apart from that, just the last 5% that it takes to get any project that I'm working on right is always the hardest to find, and it takes as long as the 95 before that, and it's hard, but it's worth it.
Yeah, mine was nothing but problems. The first day that I went out with Dom and Lane and Andrew to the cemetery to get some stuff, I was using school equipment, and I'm not saying that's the reason why, but my card corrupted, and the camera couldn't get good focus, and it was just a nightmare. And then our equipment room shut down, so I had to return everything, and I had no equipment. So I figured my camera situation out, and then I was running around with a vocal condenser mic in the woods, like walking up to bugs and stuff, and putting it like almost in the water, trying to get like really good crispy sound of everything. It was a nightmare, but it turned out all right, and it turned out that what I was shooting with was higher quality than the school cameras, so it worked out, but it was a nightmare.
It shows.
My unexpected challenge was I got all my interviews and I got a bunch of stuff, pictures and stuff that I wanted to put in, and I was listening to it and I typed up some narration and I went over to my buddy Zach's house and I recorded the narration, and then I went home and then I was cutting it together and I was like, oh my god, this is going to be like 3 times longer than what the time limit is allowed to be, what the fuck. And so I rewrote all of my narration and recut everything, and then had my friend Zach come over to my house and re-record it. But the re-record, I'm glad it went that way, because when he re-recorded it, I had all my sequences ready, so it's just like in the editing software in Premiere, just hitting record, and he could, watch what was happening at that point in the documentary while he's narrating it, and it made that process easier. So it's kind of a blessing in disguise.
I had 2 major issues while filming my doc. The first one was the scheduling. My brother was super cooperative and on board with the project and involved all the way, but he was just a lot busier than both me or him thought he was going to be. So in the end, we probably only got maybe half of the entirety of the footage that I wanted just to be able to play around with. So it really came down to the wire. I mean, me and Rick pulled 2 15-hour editing sessions in a row the weekend before it was due on Monday. So we really came down to the wire. We used about every shot we got. There was only a handful of shots that didn't actually make the final cut. So just that was our main issue. It's just time. We didn't have enough time to do it, but you know, we worked with it. And then also the interview itself. He was the actual first day of like the interview that we filmed on camera. He was very nervous and unsure what to say, even though he had all these thoughts and he didn't know how to present himself. So we reworked the interview and worked with him to figure out how he could portray it exactly how he wanted. And that took an extra weekend to do, but it was definitely worth it in the end. And it was kind of a gamble, but it worked out.
Yeah, for me, I think the most difficult aspect of my production was editing. Trying to compile, you know, an old man talking to you about stories from days gone by, you know, like 6, 7 hours worth of that. You know, I really didn't know where to go at first. And really what helped me out was like having an outline. So like start with the beginning of his life and then go from like his, you know, his interests and then into like, you know, his work, construction and stuff, and then going into his world travels. But the problem, like I said, it was a big project to take on, because prior to that I was used to making videos that were like, or just projects that were like anywhere between 2 to 5 minutes, and you know, having like my first cut, which was like 12 minutes long, you know, was a biggin, you know. So yeah, like I said, I was able to work out with that and everything. But yeah, I would say editing was like the biggest challenge for me.
Before we cut out, I think this is probably universal amongst all of us. COVID really made this hard on us because we didn't really get to make anything the year before.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it was like all a rush for most of us. Like, this is the first project, or it's our project. Some of us got to work on other people's stuff over the summer, but it wasn't ours. And then shout out to I didn't do this at Doc Night because we like in person. Shout out to John Lee, who made my music. I think he had to leave, but John was super nervous, and I just wanted to say it for everybody on the internet. His music was banging. So, like John, I think you had to leave. John, I love you. You made wonderful music. Everybody here thinks so. So, you the man.
I was gonna say, on that note, like I said, I just like everyone here is so like multi-talented and has had to do like so many like different aspects of filmmaking, like cinematography, music. I mean, Rick is a musician in his own right outside of school too, along with film, you know. So I mean, it's just kind of like, yeah, like I said, like we all like try like to like put our best foot forward, and like most were doing like multiple jobs at once, and you know, it was really hard. But you know, I'm just proud all of us are here and we pulled through, and you know, we made a great festival of films here, and
we came out swinging.
We really
from
did.
COVID.
Yes.
We were ready to shine, and we were not gonna let anything stop us.
A quick shout out to our instructor and our beautiful teacher, Selena.
Selena.
Thank you for pushing us.
Love you, Selena.
You're the best.
She has been spectacular this entire semester.
I hope whatever you're working on right now is a banger.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Oh.
He'll be back.
He's back. All right, there's a okay. Well, that's a good note. So that's gonna be it for today. I really hope you guys enjoyed the docs. Everybody's gonna be uploading there, so if you want any of them, find your people, and they'll be up on the internet soon. So
yes.
And we will be posting the donation link in the chat if anyone is generous enough to donate. You don't have to, but if you want to, we would really appreciate it. The money goes to the Filmmaker Fund here, which helps fund all the wonderful stuff that you saw today.
Films aren't cheap. I'll tell you that much.
If you guys want to tune in next year, this same channel should be used for next year's stream for the class below us. So stay on it.
A lot of great kids that are sophomores. Lots of great kids.
Up and coming kids too after us.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
We'll see ya.